For more on the Trump transition, we turn to Face the Nation moderator John Dickerson. And John, as always, we appreciate the time. We just heard Juliana discussing her original reporting that the campaign is perhaps seeking top security clearance for his eldest children. What to make of this request, even as it certainly reflects as well the idea that perhaps they would be left to run the company, albeit in a misunderstood blind trust?
Well, I think that's the most important part, is that the clearance itself, I'm not sure about what that would mean exactly. But what it does raise is the question of how close are they going to be to their father. Of course, they should be. They played a big role in the campaign. But if they're going to play a role in the administration, then what does that mean for the company? What kind of walls will there be between them? I mean, think about one of the major issues of the last campaign was the fuzziness in the relationship between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department. This suggests an even cozier, stranger, more opaque, uncharted water territory. And the whole premise of the Trump campaign is that there are not going to be these kind of cozy relationships that where people in power can benefit financially themselves or in their family. So the specifics of any individual thing are one thing, but just in general, what is the relationship going to be? How transparent is it going to be? Donald Trump set a new standard in the rhetoric of his campaign, so how's he going to meet that in practice?
And that rhetoric, scorched earth in nature, Donald Trump ran as the ultimate outsider. Perhaps it makes loyalty almost an outsized virtue, which brings us to Steve Bannon's appointment as chief strategist, right. Somebody working hand in hand with Reince Priebus, concerning many minority groups, many Democrats. I know Newt Gingrich joined you this past Sunday and seemed to play dumb about what all the fuss is about, but there is a great deal of fuss today.
Well, there is a great deal of fuss. It connects with the larger concern that people have about a Trump administration, is that he'll run the presidency the way he ran his campaign. And that has, and you know, Steve Bannon, when he was running Breitbart, was talking about a revolution, not just in the country, but within the Republican Party. Even if you leave aside the race and the gender-related bombast and attacks from Breitbart, you're talking just about a very chaotic, revolutionary-style approach to things, and that means at the very least, if past is prologue, that this is going to be, you know, it's not going to be sort of orderly and calm, which is in great contrast to what President Obama was talking about in his press conference yesterday.
Can you leave that aside, though?
No.
You know, the Southern Poverty Law Center said that under Bannon, Breitbart became a white ethno-nationalist propaganda mill.
Right.
That seems quite a description for somebody who has the ear of the president-elect.
Right. And my point was only that that you don't have to buy into that description, and you're still talking about somebody who advocates for basically blowing up the system, which means there's an explosion coming. That's just so there are two issues here, I guess, is my point. It's a worldview about how corrupt the current system is and how dismantled it needs to be. So, and then there's the other piece of it. I mean, if that is the way you came to prominence, and that is the thing upon which you built your political base, and that base is the base from which Donald Trump ran for president, it's not heard of in our history that a president abandons his base.
What role, you mentioned President Obama, what role, if only thrust upon him, just has the president played thus far in this past week? We've seen perhaps the optics of that first meeting, but then more substantively, what we heard from him yesterday as it regards Donald Trump. Well,
his role, the role he has played, is as normalizer of Donald Trump, basically saying this is the way our system works, and he is doing for Donald Trump a version of what George W. Bush did for him, and he is preparing the way, and he is saying be patient. He is both telling his supporters to both be patient. He's also telling them to be not afeared, because the presidency constrains a president who may want to do adventuresome things. But I think he's also sending messages to Donald Trump, which is this job will whipsaw you, and be careful about how you set things up in the beginning, because if you don't set them up the right way and in a slow, methodical, considered way, you will find yourself very quickly overrun by events, and you'll be in a position where you can't fix things. So it was extraordinary in that press conference to watch him send multiple different messages. And the only way he is going to be effective with Donald Trump is if he treats him with the respect that the Constitution and the democracy requires. And so he seemed at every turn to try and do that.
I want to get you out of here, but I know she was a dear friend of yours. I thankfully had a chance to meet her a couple of times. She seemed as wonderful a human being as she was a journalist. Gwen Ifill, her passing. What was she to you, and what was she to all of us?
Well, what she was to me is somebody who, for the last, gosh, I don't know how long I knew Gwen, 16, 17 years. She was just always this wonderful, joyous presence out there. I was fortunate enough to be on Washington Week with her a lot, which meant that I always had a dose of that at pretty regular intervals. To be in her company was always, you left it in kind of a state of joy, no matter what mood you were in when you met with her. She was enthusiastic and intense without being frowning. She had that wonderful sort of joy in the story, but also had this great puncturing kind of cut the baloney approach. And when you were in a group of journalists with her, you could always kind of wait. If it hadn't happened yet, you would wait for Gwen's question, which would kind of sort of be, cut the foolishness.
Cut to the heart of the matter.
And she would do that even in prepping for the show. You'd think you'd had it all kind of figured out in your nice polished phrases, and she wouldn't just she would push back, but in this wonderful and delightful way. She was just a really good person, in addition to being a good journalist. It's not always so easy to be both, especially, when you're tired and people are, nipping at you, and there are a lot of reasons to be grumpy. She was always smiling and always made you feel better for knowing her.
Especially when you try to review a week in Washington time and again. I know you said it best, I think, just next door earlier today. She's the sort of person that would find you if you'd lost a friend, be the first one to give you the hug.
Yeah, that's right. She would have had an email, the minute she heard, saying, "I'm sorry you lost your friend." And her career is a model, but also the way she behaved is a great model for all of us. So.
I'm sorry we lost a colleague, and John, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry you lost a friend. John Dickerson,
Thank you, Josh.
Very much appreciate the time.
Thanks.